Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and welcome to our May 11th, 2026, 3 p.m. land use hearing. I'm calling this meeting to order, and as in our tradition, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand and join me as you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for joining us for the Pledge of Allegiance, and again, welcome. I am Larimer County Commissioner Jody Shabby-Dowling, currently the Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. I'm joined by Commissioner Stevens and Commissioner John Gonzalez. Also, we have behind us the Clerk to the Board, and we have Deidre O'Neill. Good afternoon, Deidre. Thanks for being here. We also have our County Attorney, Christine Luckinson. And then I'm going to turn this over to our Planning Manager, Jenny Axmaker. Tom, if you would do all the introductions of staff and share some hearing procedure instructions, and then we'll go back onto our additional information about our consent agenda, our discussion item. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joining me at the dais, we have Connor Sheldon from our engineering department. We have County Planner Sam Lasher. We have Ryan Oswendell from our Planning Administrative Group. And then across the way, we have County Planner Laura Collier as well. And with that, I respectfully request that all members of the audience silence their electronic devices. Please help yourself to a copy of the agenda and hearing room procedures located on the wall by the door, or if you're joining us online, you can find those at larimer.gov/BOCC/commissioners-meetings. Please wait to speak until you're recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Please make all comments to the Board of County Commissioners from the podium. We do have a portable microphone available as needed. Please state your name at the beginning of your comments and provide the spelling of your name if it's unique. Please speak directly into the microphone so that remote participants may hear. The microphone on the podium can be repositioned to best capture your testimony. You may ask questions during your testimony, but those will not be answered until public comment is closed and the rebuttal has begun. Upon request, we do have assisted listening devices for the hearing impaired. For those on Zoom, attendees will be muted until they're recognized by the chair. If an online attendee wishes to speak or request a consent item to be removed, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom control bar or *9 on your phone. Madam Chair, just a quick update on the agenda. We do have one item that's tabled. Because it was advertised as tabled, we do not need a motion to table it.
Thank you, Jenny. That was the question I was going to have, was about that, so we won't worry about that item needing to be called out when we talk about the consent item. So, and thank you for all that information. And now I'll go through some additional information, including what is on our agenda today. As Jenny mentioned, there is one item that has been tabled, but we have one public hearing consent item, which is the Leopold rezoning file number 25-CONE3826. And we also have a public hearing discussion item, the Reese Appeal file number 25-GNRL0579. But right now, we are going to talk about the consent agenda, which are typically items on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature, and as far as we know, there are no perceived or significant controversy. Items on the consent agenda will not have a staff presentation, and the applicant will not get to speak, and there will not be an opportunity for the public comment unless the item is pulled from the consent agenda, and commissioners are able to pull items from the consent agenda as well as the public. If that occurs, then there will be a presentation and public comment, and the rest of the procedure will proceed. For items on the discussion item agenda that was mentioned before, there will be a staff presentation, and there's an opportunity for the applicant to make their case and to also make an applicant then and the staff can make rebuttal and after that there'll be an opportunity for public comment, and then after that, the applicant and then staff can make rebuttals to the public comment. The commissioners can ask questions of the applicant and staff, and then we will enter into deliberations where we'll do our best to make informed decisions. And so thank you for listening to all of that. And so we'll go back to the consent agenda, which is got the one item of the Leopold rezoning. Commissioners, either one of my colleagues want to remove that from the consent agenda? I do not either. I will ask now, is any members of the public who would like to raise their hand and ask for those items to be removed from the agenda? Okay, now we'll ask online if you wouldn't mind, Ryan.
If any members of the public online would like to remove this item from the consent agenda to the discussion, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. We have no hands raised.
Okay, I'll give one last chance in the room. Okay, so we will now move on to ask Commissioner Cafals to make that motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, there it is. What do you know? I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the consent agenda subject to any conditions of approval as set out in the staff reports and authorize the chair to sign the findings and resolutions for this particular consent agenda item.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. For those of you in the audience that were here for that item, congratulations, and we're moving on. So now we'll move on to our public hearing discussion item, which is the Reese Appeal, file number 25-GNRL0579. And so we will proceed with that. And I'm assuming that Ms. Lasher will be the planner who will be presenting on that. Is that safe to assume? Jenny, I'll have Samantha go ahead and proceed with her presentation.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners, and good afternoon, everybody. Once again, my name is Samantha Lasher, and I will be presenting the Reese Appeal, file number 25-GNRL0579. The subject property is located at 1458 Jungfrau Trail in Estes Park, as seen on the map, which is located approximately 1 mile southeast of the intersection of West Highway 66 and Wind River Trail in the Windcliff Estates subdivision. The applicants and owner of the property are David Graham and Melinda Reese. Melinda Reese is here with us in person today. The engineer for this application is Lonnie Sheldon with Van Horn Engineering, and we do have a representative from Van Horn online with us today. The property is zoned EVE1S, Estes Valley Short-Term Rental. This property, along with others in the Windcliff Estates subdivision, were rezoned to the zoning district back in 2023. The property is 0.07 acres and currently contains a single-unit residence, and the proposed land use is a short-term rental. The request before you all today is an appeal to the Appendix G standards of the Larimer County Rural Area Roadway Standards found in Article 335 B2AA of the Land Use Code, as noted below, for a proposed short-term rental. If this application is approved, the short-term rental use itself will require approval through the administrative special review process, and that is being reviewed under a separate application. The Appendix G sections that are specifically reviewed with a short-term rental include road width and clearance height, road grade, horizontal curves, dead ends and turnarounds, and drainage facilities. I would like to note that this application is limited exclusively to one roadway segment as identified in yellow on the screen. So this roadway segment starts at the intersection of Eiger Trail and Jungfrau Trail and then continues south to the subject property. All of the roadway segments leading up to that intersection, which are identified in the green color, are not included in this application because they were already authorized under a prior appeal approved by the County Commissioners in November of 2024. So with that information, as well as county engineering's analysis, it was determined that only one appeal is required with this application, and that's an appeal to road width. That's because the measured widths of this subject roadway segment, which again are identified in yellow, range from 16 to 18 feet when the standard requires 20 feet. No other appeals are required for the other sections, either because those standards have been met or they were authorized under that prior appeal. I do want to quickly touch on dead ends and turnarounds. The applicant's project description in the packet did note that an appeal would be required for this section. However, county engineering's analysis determined that because there's a looped roadway system identified in blue on this map, an appeal is not actually required for that section. Community notice was provided to 33 property owners within 500 feet. To date, no community member comments have been received. This application was also referred to 5 referral agencies, as noted on the screen, 2 of which provided comments and 3 of which did not. When considering whether to approve an appeal to deviate from standards of this code, the county commissioners must consider the 5 following appeal review criteria found in Article 672B5 of the Land Use Code. Staff has found that all applicable criteria have been met. And based on that, the Development Services team does recommend approval of this application, subject to the following condition of approval. And please note, similar to the 2024 appeal, if this application is approved, any other homes that are located along this additional roadway segment would not be required to reappeal this section if they wanted to move forward with a short-term rental. And with that, we have a suggested motion on screen for the county commissioners to consider. And Connor and I are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, for that presentation, and I appreciate your concise and informative approach today. Colleagues, I had some questions, but I'll start with you first, Commissioner Cavallo. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and owing to the concise presentation offered by our planner, I do not have any questions.
Commissioner Stevens?
I don't have any questions either.
Okay, well, great. I do. And because I'll preface this, I've been forefront of my mind dealing with a lot of roadway centers that were maybe fudged along the way or given some appeals in some other areas and people and massive fire and there was no way out. And so people's lives were lost. So I'm going to be a little more thorough, just to warn you all going forward, asking lots and lots of questions from the lessons I learned. So the first question I have is, Samantha, on page 38 of our 61 page of our packet, it talked about that the Estes Valley Fire Protection District indicated the roads are wide enough for fire apparatus and are paved to maintain. And the Larimer County Department of Engineering also indicated that they would support the appeal if the fire district considers the roadway sufficient. And because there are several measures in place for the existing road network that are intended to mitigate from minor deviations from the standards. Can you tell me that last sentence? Can you expand? Or I know it's Connor. You want to expand on the what is intended for mitigating for the other minor deviations, and minor deviations, are they noted on this in this packet? So can you expand and clarify some of that for me? Thank you. And by the way, there's a wildfire happening right now in my district. So.
Sure, yeah. So just to touch on the fire piece a little bit, we lean heavily on emergency services for their feedback. That's one of the main criteria why these road appeals were, or road standards were put into place for short-term rentals, is to make sure they could be accessed by emergency services vehicles. So we certainly look for their comments and make sure that they state that they can get to the property and find it acceptable. So that's that piece. And then for, the other piece talking about, minor deviations where the engineering department has to evaluate these appeals. We just wanted to clearly highlight that this area that rezoned to allow their whole Windcliff subdivision for short-term rentals is a little bit different and stands alone in that they have measures in place to support those. And, we get short-term rentals all over the county. Most of them are off of roads where there's, a group of people that maintain the road and they get together once a year, or, they don't even know who's maintaining it and they're steep and narrow. In this area, we just wanted to highlight some of the things that were included with the last appeal and why that was approved, which was they have year-round maintenance where they take care of the road. They paved the roads, which is very unique for Estes. They own their own snow removal equipment and do that in the winter. That's something that we run into with these short-term rentals often is, okay, emergency services says they can get to it. That's great for June, but it's the same thing can apply in January. And then on top of that, they have like a staff gatehouse that provides directions to people. So all of that to say, if we had got a minor deviation for somewhere else, maybe that it wouldn't be sufficient to say that people are going to be able to safely navigate those roadways for a 16-foot roadway, which is the minimum that we're seeing here for this additional stretch. But for this instance in particular, we were okay with a 16-foot roadway. Felt that people could navigate it efficiently.
And so so a couple questions. I'm not sure. Well, 16 feet. That's the smallest, the narrowest portion, correct? But I'm still wondering what other minor deviations are we kind of not addressing? Because it's intend to mitigate. What are they intending to mitigate?
For this appeal particularly, it's just the additional stretch of roadway, and it's just that it's too narrow. It goes down to 16 feet where the standard requires 20 feet with a built-in allowed. We can deviate administratively down to 18. So if it was 18 foot, I could have approved it without an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners. Because it has spots that go down to 16, it requires this appeal. And so that's really what the focus is. That's the minor deviation. All the other, minor deviations were approved under the previous appeal, as Sam mentioned.
But they said that they're intending to mitigate. Or what do you know what they're intending to mitigate? How are they going to mitigate? Are they expanding some of the road pieces? Are they trying to widen some of the turns? Or it says just that they are intended to mitigate. Is that just because of the other ones? That's because the ones that were approved before are intended to mitigate the ones that are here now, or is this separate? That sentence, I'm just trying to understand the sentence. Is there more intended to mitigate, or is this just because of the previous work that it was intended to mitigate the minor deviations that are on the that are already existing from the previous approval that was appealed to not have to be met?
I think my comments were intended to convey that if we received other short-term rentals that were appealing they wanted to have a 16-foot roadway, we might not necessarily support those. In this case, because of the measures that mitigate the slightly narrow roadway, we are okay supporting the 16-foot roadway. But just don't want that to be used as a blanket statement for other areas. The roadway standards were put in place for a reason.
Yeah, a big reason. And the reason is for people's safety and for ingress and egress, and found out what happens when that doesn't work. So lives are lost. So I'm curious about if there is a fire truck or apparatus that gets on that road to come up, and it's on the road and people are trying to evacuate, did the fire department and your department feel like there's enough room for the fire apparatus to be on the road and arriving and still folks be able to get around them to evacuate?
We lean on emergency services for that sort of feedback, and from their comments, albeit somewhat limited, they seemed confident that they could access the even parts further into Windcliff than this part. So I'd say yes.
Okay. Samantha?
And Commissioner, if I could add on to that, there was also a statement that was provided in the previous appeal that I believe is attachment C of the packet. Yeah, attachment C. So there was previously a turn at the intersection of Windcliff and Eagle Cliff Drive that was found to be too narrow, so they did widen that. And with that improvement, it sounds like now fire trucks and other emergency vehicles can reach even the highest elevation in the subdivision. So I also wanted to add that as well. Thank you.
And and thank you for adding that. That's been approved since that last appeal. They widened it anyway.
Yes, I believe that improvement was actually made even prior to the previous appeal. But yes, that improvement has been made.
Okay, that's helpful. Yeah, I'm sorry, watching the evacuations around my house. So, let's see. And then also, I think it's important that they're a fire-wise community, which I think is important. Okay, so that helps my concern about the cumulative effect of all these deviations being approved or allowed. And I think we start getting a lot, and then there's one big fire truck on it, and then I'm worried about everyone else simultaneously. One's coming up, one's coming down, and how many deviations do we allow in this neighborhood before the cumulative effect makes it a hazard? So have we thought about that with our analysis?
Not necessarily. We have taken into consideration, as I mentioned, that an appeal was previously approved for that one segment of road from Highway 66, I believe, all the way down to that intersection. And during that presentation, it was shown that Estes Valley Fire Protection District had no concerns and indicated that they were safely able to navigate that roadway. And in addition, with this new roadway segment, as Connor mentioned, there's just sort of one slight deviation, but it does not negatively impact emergency services accessing the road, nor does it negatively impact renters or other guests safely navigating to the homes.
Away from the homes or to the homes?
To and away from the homes.
Okay. Sorry, this is fires growing, and there's now aircraft coming, and their evacuations are growing. So this is right front and center. But I just wanted to kind of, just a note from me, I want to maybe think about maybe asking emergency services if fire trucks are coming up and people are evacuating, is that road going to be wide enough for allow people to get out while fire equipment's coming? So that, and you're all telling me yes, that's what they have said.
Yes, as Connor said, their comments were brief, but they did indicate that the roads are generally wide enough for fire apparatus.
Okay. For the fire apparatus, but my question is it enough for the fire apparatus and folks able to get out around them as they're leaving?
There's some assumption here, but I would assume that they factor that into their analysis, making sure that they can reach it with traffic also leaving.
Okay. Maybe if you guys ever have a chance in the future, maybe you can pose that question for me, just because 16 feet in my mind, I actually went out and measured it, and I'm wondering how that looks, with some cars might and some cars might not. So just wondering about that. So especially fire trucks. I measured one of those too. And say how the biggest one with those volunteer fire departments in Estes and how much that would be. So, okay. I think that's the one I had the most questions about. And so I think all my questions have been answered. Any other questions, colleagues? Okay. So I guess now we'll have the applicant come up and present. I've asked enough staff questions. Welcome. You have 10 minutes for your presentation.
All right. Can you hear me okay? I'm Melinda Reese, so I am the property owner of the property being requested for short-term rental. And I actually, so we did put together this presentation. The presentation doesn't really have any additional information from what Sam already presented. So I actually might use my time a little bit differently to touch on just, so I actually am from California. I have personally been evacuated from multiple homes that I've lived in during wildfires. And so I just want to say I take all of those concerns very seriously. When I was in college, half of the college burnt down due to a wildfire in Santa Barbara. And so just want to note that I also take those concerns very seriously. And having owned this property for 5 years, seeing all of the work that our community has done to be a Firewise community and to make sure that the roads are well maintained and that we are able to safely ingress and egress during all conditions, I take very seriously and really appreciate all the work that Windcliff does in order to make sure that that is the case for the residents up there as well as for any guests up there. So just wanted to touch on that. I guess if you do want, we can maybe just flip through quickly the slides. But again, there's not much new information. So again, you can flip to the next one. So as was mentioned earlier, the Windcliff neighborhood was rezoned to EVE 1S in February 2024. And so the community as a whole has really embraced the idea of short-term rentals. And so we are now here to talk about the appeal required for Appendix G for the road width based on the standards adopted in 2023. And so again, all this was previously discussed. You know, the variance from the standards can be considered so long as the roadway is considered safe and emergency access can be maintained. And so this is actually this is from the previous appeal. Some of the areas where there were specific appeals needed. So those have already all been addressed in the previous appeal. But then for the review criteria, so recognizing that approval will not subvert the purpose of the standard, will not be a detrimental to the public health, safety, or property values in the neighborhood, is the minimum action necessary, will not result in increased costs, and is consistent with the intent of the purpose of the code. And so as the next few slides real quickly will touch on, we feel that's all met. So will not subvert the purpose of the standard. You know, there are unique physical attributes in Larimer County, recognizing, you know, Real G7 recognizes the need to fit individual site circumstances and does state that that variances can be considered when the roadway is still safely maintained and emergency access is maintained. And as we've touched on, that's the case. So yeah, this was the quote that I think Sam mentioned earlier from EVFPD. So again, safety is a huge priority in the Windcliff neighborhood, fire safety and prevention. We do have very robust year-round maintenance, full-time and seasonal employees. The road signage for being private roads is you know, above and beyond what you would typically see in a neighborhood like this. And emergency response has had to come to homes in the neighborhood and has had no issues. And we have the fully staffed gatehouse. So Windcliff is considered a Firewise community in good standing. This is as of January 29th. As far as I'm aware, we are still in good standing. So again, doing everything we can to make sure that the community is safe. So just a few of the other items. Approval will not be detrimental to public health. Again, we've gone through that. Approval is the minimum action necessary, and it won't increase costs. So we feel approval is consistent with the intent and purpose of the code. Again, I won't belabor the point. I feel like we've gone through a lot of this. Again, this is just the map of the small stretch that we're looking at for this specific appeal. So yeah, in closing, we feel like this is consistent with the intent and purpose of Appendix G. Maintenance standards are high and safety is provided for. Denial could result in denying other Windcliff owners access to licenses, and feel that this is a reasonable request given the other previous approval. And that's all.
Thank you for your presentation. You had a few minutes left. Anything else you wanted to add? Okay,
that's all.
Great. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner, no. Considering I know you attached or you're considering you had one of the things you had on your screen there was that was impacting other people from having short-term licenses. Do you have any concerns about the neighborhood being fully short-term rentals and a lot of folks from out of town that maybe not understand evacuation routes and where to go and how to get in and out of such a sensitive area for wildfire? Do you feel a deviation from these standards would, because the roads are, even though it's, I mean, it is below the 820 and even below the 18, that any thoughts about that? Just because, I mean, considering hindsight is sometimes 2020 and other communities are maybe wishing they hadn't made such small deviations.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comment or the question. I don't have any concerns about that. You know, we have been working through the process with Sam to respond to comments from the other groups, and I believe it was the EVFPD that Kathy is with that we've been working with on the specific requirements that we're required to post within the home and required to have all the documentation so that people who are visiting do have all the information they need to be able to evacuate safely. I've also been not only do I have the home that I have now, I've also had family and friends rent other homes in Windcliff. So I've been in other homes and seen the documentation in other homes as well. And I feel like the community as a whole has done a really great job to prepare guests as they come in to make sure that they have all the information they need.
Okay. And are you personally involved with any of the Firewise or any of the activities in the community? And have kind of walked that road, that section of road, and understand kind of the requirements for some of those activities, since that's mentioned in your application?
Yeah, so I am not specifically involved in the Firewise committee, I'll say, with our HOA, but they provide resources to the individual property owners. So we have, through their resources, had someone come out and done an assessment of my property specifically to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to maintain it in a Firewise way. And so I have reaped the benefits of others who are doing that hard work and appreciate all the work that they're doing.
Thank you. That's all. I think that's all the questions I have for right now. Any other questions, colleagues? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to public comment then. Is there any, I don't see anybody in the room, but is there anybody online for public comment?
If any members of the public online would like to speak on this item, please use the raise your hand function or *9 now. We have no hands raised.
Okay, and just for the, is there anyone in the room who wants to make public comment other than the applicant? And there's no one in the room, so we'll close public comment. Okay, now the public comment is closed. Any other questions or comments? And I suppose you're ready for deliberation, colleagues, so I'll start with Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the applicant. I will support the appeal based on the information presented that the Estes Valley Fire Protection District did provide a referral agency letter indicating they didn't have any major concerns, and that Windcliff is a very unique neighborhood, and they do a lot to make sure their roads are up to date. And so based on that, I will support the appeal.
Okay, Commissioner Kafalis. Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll also support the appeal. I believe that the applicant has met all the review criteria. I think that there are some special circumstances in this case with the paving of all the roads, installing of fire hydrants, their snow removal equipment on site. There are a lot of factors that have made this community more safe, and I do believe that this does not subvert the purpose of this standard. And furthermore, we do rely a lot on the referral agencies, and Estes Valley Fire Protection District was a pretty short response. I think in large part because some other areas of this neighborhood have already been improved, and also they understand that this this area and the property owners here have really worked on making sure that, again, like I said, the roads are paved, that there's snow removal equipment, there's fire hydrants. And so because of all that and the staff's recommendation, I will support the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. I do appreciate the referral agency comments, and I know they were short, but I also know that they probably have and know that area well to bring their fire trucks up and know the width. I just would like to maybe in the future, I maybe ask Warren and some of them, do they feel like it's enough for the trucks and for people to be able to get around and evacuate? And I think I've stated my reasons, because my reasons are now more heightened than they were before. And I also appreciate that engineering said that there are a few segments that do not conform with adequate access, but because the emergency services considers it to be sufficient and it's a shorter, say, road, and then the fire hydrants, I think that's important. But also, I had concerns about the previous ones when we approved them. I really was uncomfortable with the other ones, but you're saying staff has said that they have made improvements to widening those since then, and so some of those other standards have been mitigated. But I do want to just, I feel like I need to say my concerns of the accumulation of all the different roadways. There's still some steep, but then we keep kind of approving these deviations because the other ones were, and I think the cumulative effect is really starting to make me uncomfortable about how much we have approved, and so that still gives me a little bit of concern about when is that tipping point, and so and it seems like there is any opposition from neighbors, and also. Like as I said, I do take seriously the Estes Valley Fire Department's input and appreciate Connery answering my questions. I just wanted to be very clear about what that statement was saying, if there was more future work, so appreciate that. So I'm really reluctant to approve this application, but I don't have any strong criteria for reasons not to, but I have stated my concerns and they still hold steady, and I do think considering the historic conditions we're in, I really hope all these deviation standards don't add up to any major problems in the future, so as people try to evacuate. So with that being said, I guess like I said, I will reluctantly support this. So, Commissioner Stevens, would you make that motion, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Board of County Commissioners approve the Reese Appeal, file number 25GNRL0579, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Thank you, Commissioner Stevens. So there's a motion on the table. Any further discussion? Commissioner Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, colleagues. I just want to make sure it's clear for the record that in addition to my comments earlier, my decision is based on the fact that I believe all 5 appeal review criteria have been met. Just wanted to add that.
Okay, sir. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, passes 3-0. We have no further business on our agenda, so at 3:39, we are adjourned.